Welcome. As all of you are here from this first program in Antioquia, it is a pleasure to be with you. If you want to be informed, we will be talking about this monothematic topic, but obviously at the end you will see the information that happened during the day. We want to bring you a different content where we sit, think, analyze, and we will see if we can surprise you with this topic. I'm going to ask you what the baby Jesus brought you. Although if he gives me for the next year on how to bring down these extra pounds that I've gained. Well, we will enter a topic that I think generates a lot of concern, not to think that we are alone in this universe. It's almost impossible. It would be the strangest thing in the world, but on a single planet in this universe of billions of stars and planets and thinking we are being alone.
And also about the movies. And my comments has not been biased to imagine that everything from outside is bad, and maybe it's not.
The thing is that if one sees a different race out there and is scared and says that we are not alone on this planet or in this universe,
And also generates many expectation about those paranormal encounters that they call in the movies and influences a lot.
many say that the movies are futuristic, or all the things we see in movies many years ago have happened. Remember, like the one movie, War of the Worlds, the one we saw in black and white, and the most recent version terrifying us. We always imagine an alien coming to dominate the planet, ending the race and seizing resources, and the friendliest was the one from E.T. who was lost. He had to show his finger to call home, but we don't really know why we haven't had a chance to see them or to have contact or anything like that. The only experience that I have had in my life are deja vus, from which I have had in many occasions. I have been here before but never happened. But beyond that, I have only seen satellites. But I would like to, just as I like the earthquakes and I like hurricanes. Don Sixto Jose Paz Wells, welcome and thank you for being here from Peru. How about the national team? Do you think they'll go to the World Cup?
We thank Colombia for the favor as well.
Someone told me about the periodic table. You do know what it is, right? That would not even be the 1% that could come into existence in the universe and many other things. And when we think about spaceships or other things, my God, what we still need to discover, how true is this?
Well, let's remember that only 40 years ago, scientists considered space to be empty, that there was nothing between planets and stars, that the only proven solar system was ours. So it was not certain that other stars had planets and they formed solar systems. That is 40 years ago. It was thought that the stars were adorned in the sky, so that one at night just had a romantic time. It was thought that the only planet with living conditions or with water was Earth, in such a way that we could be kind of the unique case in the entire universe. So if humans would get to nuclear detonate us by someone's madness and we end life, could this mean that the creation failed, which was useless? Now, in 2013, the NASA Kepler space probe detected that in the Milky Way alone, there were 17 billion planets with the possibility of life like our galaxy. Only in this galaxy. And there are hundreds of billions of galaxies like ours. Now, just in February of 2013, the Hubble Space Telescope discovered the first exoplanet in a planet outside of our solar system that is 100% water. Earth is 75% water. This planet was 100% water, and in 2014, if you remember, NASA gave 5 planets with living conditions. 5 exoplanets that have the possibility where humanity, in the event that we ended life on our planet, we could emigrate there. It is likely that in these 5 exoplanets, one was at 12.6 light years away, relatively close to us, another one at 22.5 light years from this planet. There was 100% water. Then there was another that was more or less about almost 500 light years away. Another one was at 1200 and another one at 1600 light years away. One says that, those distances are enormous. It is impossible that someday we can get there. However, Miguel Alcubierre, a Mexican scientist in the mid 1990s. He developed an engine, the technology of the plasma motors. This technology already exists, by which we could get to travel through the universe at really amazing speeds. It is said, according to the physics, that it is impossible to travel faster than light speed, almost 300,000 kilometers per second, because we would transform ourselves into light, and then there would not be nothing to unite us again. So NASA, from the discovery of Alcubierre, has developed a type of ship that manages to create a kind of capsule that is like a ring. The ship is inside the ring, and then this creates insulation for the ship and would allow for the plasma engines. It would be possible traveling at 10 times the speed of light, so we could reach the exoplanet more close to our solar system, which is a planet that revolves around the alpha star of Centaur. That is, the Centaur is a binary star, and it has now been discovered in 2012 that in the strip of habitable planets, and it has now been discovered in 2012 that in that strip, not too close to a star, not too far from it to have conditions, there is a planet that has oceans like Earth, and that has rocky continents, has an acceptable atmosphere, just that it's a bigger planet than ours and that might be livable, and it's the closest one to us at only 4.2 light years. We would reach the nearest planet in 2 weeks. In just 2 weeks. 15 days to reach the closest one to us. But
when is this being planned for?
that is the problem. It is still in the experimental phase. The plasma engines and the ship, the design and the prototype exists, but the structure has not yet been made, and it must be seen that the plasma motors are compatible with this technology of the ring that really isolates the ship.
So that would explain, Mr. Boss, the travels of those things that people say they see. You are going to tell us about your experience of your trip to Ganymede. What would be the kind of technology they use to get from planets so far away to Earth?
Let's remember one thing. We live in a universe without limits. The only limit is our ignorance. What was impossible for us 40 years ago, today is a reality. We have discovered that the space is not empty. It's filled with cosmic dust from dark matter, cloud of organic molecules, the raw material for life, is plaguing the universe, and the meteorites and comets drag organic molecules and bombard the worlds as if they were cosmic sperm fertilizing the eggs. Today, the scientific community recognizes that the life process that occurred here on Earth must be common throughout the universe. Later, it was discovered that water is common in all the universe. It's more, it has been discovered that the moon in 2009 has as much water as the Earth, only that underground the moon, and there are craters on the surface that have been even lakes of frozen water of 300 meters in diameter, for which the survival of communities is assured of humans on the moon. Many people wonder why, after Apollo 17, we did not return to the moon. Because there was no way to secure our permanent colony on the moon, and that's why it was used to make geological measurements. This blew up missiles that was made, ripping the crust of the moon to see how good it was. Today is known to have as much water as the Earth. You will remember that the Cassini probe that was sent precisely by NASA to Saturn has 60 moons. We only have one. Saturn 60. One of them is only 500 kilometers in diameter. It's called Enceladus and has geysers launching water vaporized at 40 kilometers of altitude. You go to the national parks and you remember a geyser that threw up a 20-meter away geyser, and everybody is applauding. Here in Encelado, it throws water to 40 kilometers away and nobody applauds because we don't even see it.
Please allow us, because you are giving us a lot of information. Let me ask you something. Who more or less understands it like that? Time and space. Both are correlated. Currently, when you say that one goes at the speed of light, you lose everything. Because in 1 second, you travel 300,000 kilometers. And I can't say I'm here, because when I say I'm here, I spend 300,000 kilometers farther. That is more or less the theory, correct? The organism that the human being has a cycle of time and life agreed with the cycle of Earth at 24 hours and all this. What can you tell me about this? Because
A while ago, something very interesting was being discussed, such as the deja vus. That is, the human being has psychic potentials. Impressive. That is, Harry Potter is nothing compared to any of us. Because not only can we communicate with the word, but also with the mind. That is called telepathy. You can see with the eyes, but also with the mind. Or it's called clairvoyance. You can touch an object and through the touch to know if it's rough, smooth, or cold or hot. Through the touch you can know the history of the object, to who it belonged, if the owner of the object is alive, is dead, is close, is far. Interpol, Scotland Yard, FBI use psychic to solve criminal cases that cannot be solved through the normal way. This is called dermoptic, dermo skin, optic vision. Vision through the skin. While psychic faculties are premonition or precognition, the ability to anticipate the future, that is, how many people did not go to work to the Twin Towers on the day of the attacks? By the time this happened, there had to be 50,000 people in the towers, and among the people who died and disappeared, 3,000. The people had a premonition to anticipate misfortunes, like a cognition or prior knowledge of things we dream at night. Much dreams are not mere imagination. There are dreams that are true experiences in another dimension, are called astral travel. There are dreams that are premonitories or precognitories, the ability to anticipate the future. How many people stopped going to work in the Twin Towers on the day of the attack because they felt a revolt in the belly, where it is not only on the right side of the brain where the emotional intelligence is, also in the belly. People felt anguish and did not go to work. By the time they would have gone to work, there should have been 50,000 people in the towers. And among the people who died and disappeared, 3,000. What happened? People had a premonition to anticipate misfortunes, or cognition, prior knowledge of things we dream at night. Much of the dreams are not mere imagination. There are dreams that are true experiences in another dimension, which are called astral travel. There are dreams that are premonitory or precognitive, anticipating of what will happen to you or so that you are prepared for when this happens. There are dreams that would be memories of past lives. For those of us who believe in reincarnation, it would be interesting to delve into that later. There are dreams that are imagination, subconscious outcrop. When you wake up, you forget what you dreamed of, and suddenly, when the situation that I had anticipated occurs, you say that I had already experienced this. I had dreamed this. I had never been here. However, I know that behind this wall there's a tower, or there's a well, or there's a pool, and it is there. Everything is. And how can you have known it? Past lives, or because you had that precognition? Or conditioned prior knowledge of things. Exists the possibility to really travel through time and space because the universe, it's not really the idea that everything we have done, things don't work just like you were saying about the periodic table of the elements, because in the space, how much more things there will be. Every night when we look at the sky, we see neither the present nor the future, but what we see is at night is the past. The stars, the planets are so far from us that what we're seeing already happened. As you do the migration to the system, many of those stars don't exist anymore.
like the gravitational waves that arrived a little bit ago.
Precisely. On March 3rd of 2009, the gravitation wave detector of Hanover in Germany, the GEO 600, detected sounds from the far reaches of the universe that led scientist Craig Hogan to conclude through computers that we live on a hologram, in a virtual reality, in a large-scale simulation. In 2014, because of the quantum physics, Michio Kaku, a theoretical physicist who is an American scientist with Japanese parents, who has a television show in the Discovery Channel, stated that we live in a kind of a parallel reality. Stephen Hawking had already said that there are parallel universes, and that he does not dislike thinking that there would be another Stephen Hawking living in those parallel universes. Thousands of years ago in India, it was said that the human being has 7 bodies, and this is who you are living all this material reality. When you sleep, you live another parallel reality in the astral. But you can also live another parallel reality in the mental, in the soul, in the spirit. That is, we live in parallel universes.
Why the denial? It's not easy to try to understand that, and how it occurs, and how to appropriate the subject instead of denying it. Why must people, governments, even pretend and then denying instead of understanding it?
Many label them as pseudoscience or
Any knowledge that you have that the others don't gives you a power and advantage over the rest. The control of the information is the advantage in the modern world. We are in the aquarium age. According to the esotericists, before there was little information. Now there is too much information, and it is very difficult to know that everything that circulates around is true. Circulates truths, half-truths, lies. In all revolts today, to access the truth, you have to use intuition, imagination, and intelligence, or intuition, instinct, and intelligence. Therefore, you can't believe everything, nor you can reject everything either. When you find that May 13, 2008, a very sensitive date for the Catholic Church because it remembers the appearance of the Virgin of Fatima, José Gabriel Funes, the highest astronomical authority in the Vatican, a Jesuit, one of an Argentine origin. Now it is fashionable to be a Jesuit and an Argentine. So this is the scientist in charge of the observatory in Castel Gandolfo in Rome. Declared to the Daily Roman Observatory that it is the official means of the Vatican, that the Vatican accepts extraterrestrial life, and that it is as lawful for a Catholic to believe in God as to believe in aliens. Holy God, what kind of world are we living in? When Stephen Hawking was interviewed in 2014 for the Discovery Channel, and he always communicating through a computer because he can't speak, unfortunately has a disease that has him in a wheelchair, he stated that he is convinced that aliens exist, but recommends that we do not try to have contact with them because they could come invading or conquering us. If they came with bad intentions, they would have made us dust long ago. And they are visiting us from immemorial times, because all the myths and legends from the ancient peoples speak of gods sent or angels who came and promised to return one day.
But in a certain way, why is the interest of government to hide that information?
The first reason is because it does not matter to the military whether they are aliens or foreigners. From the moment that an unidentified flying object invades your airspace without you being able to avoid it is a national security problem. So facing the taxpayers, you are making a fool of yourself because you cannot avoid it. Why there are borders, why is there military if they are like a strainer, like a drainer? Everything goes through. On the other hand, the most prosperous business at the time that only competes in profitability with the international drug trafficking is the sale of weapons. If it is shown that these beings exist and do not come with bad intentions, this would force the countries of the world to unite as a single great nation, as a single great world government that could be the United Nations. The borders would disappear, as well as the sale of weapons. Also, the foreign debt would disappear. There would not be one who to owe it to. Poverty would disappear in the world, but there are those who do not want this to happen, naturally. What happens if these beings share with us cutting-edge technology? What if they tell us that with just a little quartz crystal, we can extract the energy from 1 million barrels of oil or 2 nuclear power plants? What would happen to the exporting countries? Or countries exporting nuclear or petroleum energy on the other hand? What if we talk about free energy? That all the stars are radiating energy in the universe and the energy is there. All you would need is just an energy accumulator, a capacitor, to have energy indefinitely. There would be no owner, and there are no owners. There are no large companies that control all this.
there would be no owner.
There will be no owners, and there are no owners and no large companies that control all this, right? Now, and also, how about our religions? Why, if our religion leaders are in contact with the divinity that I do not doubt they do, why they never told us the faithful who had brothers on other planets, if they knew why they hid it, and if they did not know it, why didn't they? Aren't they inspired by the boss? In 1999, Monsignor Corrado Balducci, theologian and personal friend of the Pope John Paul, appeared on the RIA, the Italian Radio and Television, RIA, and he declared the current position of the Catholic Church. In 1999, facing the UFO issue is accepting the possibility that in such a large universe we're not alone, and that the angels of the past could be the aliens of today. Holy God, how times have changed.
Where do we find out about the reincarnation, premonitions, virtual reality, and parallel reality with the UFO phenomenon?
If we're talking to us about extraterrestrial beings and of people who claim to have had the experience of extraterrestrial contact and have been able to verify it, not only us along the 43 years of research and experiences together with the contact group, because this is not only Sixto stories. It happened to a collective of people in which I am only one more. 10 times we have invited the press to schedule meetings with them with anticipation. The first journalist who accompanied us in the year 74 was Juan Jose Benitez, the world-famous author of The Trojan Horses, the book series. When he was only one more press correspondent to the EFE agency, was sent to Peru to cover the unusual news of a group of young people that we were back then 43 years ago, who said to have extraterrestrial contact through meditation and through psychography or automatic writing, which is a form of instrumentalized telepathy. As background, my father investigated this as a hobby before I was born. My father was a scientific advisor in aeronautics and astronomy of the Peruvian Air Force. My father was a personal friend in Germany of Hermann Ober, the professor of Baden-Württemberg Brown, the creator of the Saturn V, who took the man to the moon. My father was a personal friend of Neil Armstrong. He told my dad, Mr. Carlos, on the moon we have seen things that we cannot tell. It's not true that they did not reach the moon. Yes, they got to the moon, but they did not say everything they saw. These experiences of contact has allowed us to take the press 10 times. If you go into YouTube with my name, Sixto Jose Paz Wells, there are a series of videos of the times we have invited the press where the journalists themselves have filmed the appearance of the objects in full daylight. Not at night time with a strange little light. No. The object captured, and the most interesting thing, on the last video filmed by Televisa from Mexico, the journalist came with us to a public place, like Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico. A tourist place in front of thousands of tourists, from 10:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the afternoon. Then the journalists say, well, Sixto Paz has invited us because he says that something is going to appear. Who knows? And so, on an ironical, sarcastic way, at the end of the video, you can hear them saying, it was 6 objects that appeared. It was incredible in the sky, making evolutions. So at the end of the video, the journalist said there were 6 objects. It was amazing. Now, this shows not so much that we are the great contactees or that our experience is unique. There are many people in the world who are having these contacts. What happens is that not everyone dares to say it. Not everyone in the world tells it. Now, in this context, we have had the opportunity to see them physically. Today, we know that there are 60 different races that are coming to Earth. There are beings 3 meters high. There are beings 2.5 meters, 2 meters 90, 1 meter 80, a meter 50, a meter 20, 1 meter, 80 centimeters, 60 centimeters, 10 centimeters. So they were mistaken for goblins, gnomes in the past, because they were tiny. Now there are beings with a humanoid, anthropomorphic aspect. There are extraterrestrials, black beings, white beings, blue beings. There are half greenish, grayish. There are also beings of zoomorphic aspect, beings that appear anthropomorphized, reptiles, with tails and everything. There are felinoids, beings. They seem felines. Today, No director of Hollywood dares to make a script of any movie. Besides, I've had the opportunity to be in Burbank Studios in Hollywood, sitting in front of the directors like Joseph Randazzo and the writers and everything, and tell them the content experience. And years later, I saw that many of the things I told them were in the movies. You were talking a moment ago about the alien and the eighth passenger. Maybe the alien, if you know the script, they are a genetic manipulation of a humanoid extraterrestrial race that planted us on this planet, and in case we escape their control, they created the aliens to control us, to exterminate us. They were the mechanism to end humanity in the event that humanity escaped their control. It is not that they were natural beings that appear in the world. Nature is fierce and aggressive, but not as bad as we are.
Sixto, when you talk about that number of 60 races that come to Earth, when they come, do we confuse these aliens with ordinary human beings? Tell us about Vladimir Putin, who is an enigmatic figure and a mystery. Because there is a whole mystery around the presence of this character, that makes Vladimir Putin a person who has a mystery around him.
What it is that Putin has privileged information. He was with the highest authority of the KGB, and therefore had access to information that others, like the Prime Minister or the President, not handled by the presidents of Russia, because for the most part, they did not have either the preparation and the capacity and interest in certain information. He has privileged information. And in a world like ours, that gives him a power far greater than material or economic wealth than others. Well, what happens is that with the extraterrestrials with whom we have been in contact 25,000 years of ours, two great civilizations that were in charge of our planet as guardians and watchers of our planet, some beings from Orion and others from Pleiades, fought among themselves. In other words, a group of extraterrestrial civilizations considered that human beings on Earth that had been sown on this planet some billions of years ago, but some 25,000 years ago, we were dangerous and could endanger the cosmic order because we were a corrected and improved version of them, so they wanted to cancel the project, the cosmic plan. That concentrated its attention on our planet. Others, on the contrary, they considered that human beings can be the key to get them out of this sort of evolutionary stagnation in which they find themselves. They have advanced a lot mentally and technologically, but at the cost of sacrificing emotions and feelings. Some were against, others in favor of the plan. They fought among themselves. The echoes of this cosmic war still resonates in humanity, to an extent that in the Bible it tells us about the war of the children of the light against the children of darkness. The angel wars, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, talks about the war of the gods and the semi-gods with spaceships called Vimanas. For example, the Greek mythology tells us about the war of the Titans that ended that a group of Greek gods were deported and exiled to Earth. And so many myths and legends tells us exactly the same. So a group of these beings coming from Orion with reptile-like appearance were deported. Their leader, called Satanel, Satan or Satanas, and this reptilian-looking alien, today, after leading this descent with the leaders, were left in one place on Earth, which is what we know as Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. With their myths and legends of the Rapa Nui, the Maoris, they tell us that the first habitants of the island were the lizard men, who were left in a kind of a luminous pearl that came from the sky and landed in the interior of the Raraku volcano, the quarry of the Moai. But that is another story to avoid going too far. These beings used to live thousands of years outside the Earth, died on Earth, and they were trapped in our world in another dimension, like a series or some kind of ghosts, and these beings have been constituted into a kind of gloomy, negative, secret world government. These beings have constituted into a kind of gloomy, negative, secret world government and are manipulating people of weak character and will, placing them into politics and religion, in the economy, in the military, in the music. how would you explain that suddenly a person who has gone bankrupt 4 times his businesses be in front of the most powerful nation on the planet? Like for him to bankrupt the country and the world economy? How can it be possible that in a country like Venezuela, with the great industrial development that it had, with groups like the Great Universal Brotherhood, like Connie Mendes, please, people with an esotericism and knowledge that is in the hands of people with so many problems. This explains well then and really because there are people who are demonically possessed. And that is the only explanation. Then there is a negative, dark, world seeker government that is there is not people like that if you take off their mask are reptiles. No. Let's leave out the television type of invasion and encounters of the 6 type series. No. There are people that are possessed, and possession does exist.
And that negative government, where is it?
Well, it is spread throughout the world. There are 13 families, 13 clans, so to speak, and around 300 families. Some of them are beings who have incarnated in this planet and are called the Illuminati. In the second half of the 18th century, Adam Bawainspawn and Baron Nathan of Rothschild founded the sect of the Enlightened of Baviera. But previously, they had already been acting through other mechanisms. So the Illuminati, because they really exert an action that is, they are always behind the scenes and they are not the ones in the front row. The Bush, for example, are only servants of this.
There are the Rockefellers, for example.
Yes, but as I say, they are not the people many times who are in the first row, like Kissinger.
Well, everything was good until you touched into politics. What can you tell us about here in Colombia? Please answer this question. Don't they ever have a camera or a cell phone? Why is this not so viral?
Yes, we have them, but it does not come out. That is, you take your camera and the film, and your battery drains instantly. When it was used, the photographic rolls, the testimony are in the full pages. For example, in the newspaper of '89, the first time we invited the press in the desert in the south of Peru, 40 journalists from 8 countries came. Among them, Leticia Bayava from Channel 51, Telemundo of Miami, Jose Gray from Channel 23, Univision, Beatriz Parga from the Miami Herald, and much more. The ship appeared. We saw about 80 meters above the ground. They grabbed all the possible cameras at the time. They were with rolls, like prehistoric times. The photographs were already taken and only the first photo from each photographic roll of each camera came out. The rest were completely veiled. The video cameras taped and the batteries started draining. The people from the press told me, Sixto, at least an hour-long documentary worldwide with this would be spectacular. They went to the Sheraton Hotel in Lima, which was their headquarters of the journalists there in Lima, and they telephoned their channels. We have it. We have filmed it. When they got to Miami, Channel 23, Univision, Channel 51, and Telemundo, they found that the people from the U.S. government, the famous men in black, have already arrived and told the management of both channels. They were waiting for the footage to be delivered to them to review them previously. They were returned clipped, and the maximum allowed to journalists was 3 minutes on a local newscast. From there, they called me to Lima and told me, Sixto, if we had not experienced the information censorship on our own flesh, we would continue to think that when it is said that there is a whole policy of covering up the UFO phenomena, it is a kind of paranoia that accompanies those contactees. It is simply said to cache the topic, give it importance. Now we know they have censored us.
Well, yes. We in education, it is not really possible to find a logic or a sense. Why these natural disasters and why in a certain regions people are more affected than others?
Unfortunately, we have the wrong idea that the climate change is a product of human-generated environmental pollution. That is not true. The contamination made by the human beings, what it's doing is accelerating the process of deterioration of the environment, and it's making certain disasters that would inevitably occur, product of a cosmic cycle. They are much more violent. In this book, which is the 20th that I have published, which is called The Sanctuary on Earth, I mention all the information that the extraterrestrials told us about this great metamorphosis or planetary mutation. According to the extraterrestrials, every 26,000 years our planet receives a pulse from the center of the galaxy. An energy of violet light is the energy of the transmutation, mysticism, faith, magic, change. Darwin, when he developed the theory of the evolution of species, he knew that from time to time a large generalized mutation occurs on the planet. What he did not know was the periodicity with which that occurred and what caused it. But only those species able to adapt to the change were the ones that survived. Today, scientists already know that every 26,000 years, the Mayas in the Chilam Balam de Chumayel, in the fortune teller book, or the jaguar sorcerer, were about to happen. They spoke about the synchronizing ray coming from the Hunapku of the center of the galaxy. That every 25,625 years came to our solar system.
Why that figure?
Because that figure is exactly the mathematical calculation. The Mayas were not prophets, they were mathematicians. And the Mayans already knew precisely that every 25,625 years, we received the pulse that came from the center of the galaxy. They had already achieved to detect now how, as if the Mayan civilization would not give an antiquity superior to the 2,500 years already and the previous antecedents. 10,000, but in every ancient times, right? And we are really not talking about Mayans, but the ancestors properly of the Mayans. So as to be able to calculate what every 25,625 years happened. No, the wheel of the Bactuns. The Mayans said their ancestors came from the Pleiades and came to Earth through a large snake tail or hollow reed. It would be nothing other than the so-called wormholes or interdimensional portals, cosmic folds to travel through time and space. Now, the Mayans said that a pulse came from the center of the galaxy. 43 years ago, the extraterrestrials told us that every 26,000 years from the center of the galaxy, where there is a supermassive star, a pulse is produced, and that pulse reaches the solar system and affects the sun and makes the sun go into convulsions, increasing the solar storms, sunspots. That radiation affects each and every planet of the solar system. And when it reaches the Earth, it affects the Earth's magnetic field, minimizing it by heating the atmosphere, melting glaciers, melting poles, increasing the level of fresh ocean water with subsequent irrigation that the marine currents stop, and a drastic climate change takes place. With the subsequent risk, after warming up, the planet suddenly freezes. And then all of North America and Europe could be under miles of ice. It could happen. Now, that radiation also affects the core of the planet and makes the planet suffer internal seizures. And the planet swells and suffer what is called the Great Tectonic Expansion. That pressures makes the magma come out everywhere. That's why we are seeing the Earth, which is like a piece of the sun in the process of cooling it, should have fewer volcanoes, less earthquakes, not more or less. Why in Chile at the moment there are 90 volcanic cones active, with eruptions as violent as the one in the Puyehue, Chaitén, de Villarrica, de Calcubo, huge eruptions. Why all this is happening? Why the earthquakes? As the planet swells, the tectonic plates move away more violently from each other and collide more violently with each other. In the earthquake of Japan of March 11 of 2011, Japan and its islands sank within minutes, a meter, and they ran 2 meters 41 on the map. This is by the theory of the continent drift. Continents drift apart between continents about 1 to 3 centimeters each year. In a matter of minutes, they moved away 2 meters and 41. It was something violent. A tremendously violent thing in the case of Chile, for example. You remember in February of 2010, a terrible earthquake. The city of Concepcion, that was the epicenter, moved 8 meters to the west. And the entire continent also moved to the west. And the entire continent also moved to the mainland. So we are really living something that is not just climate change. I was just in a matter of 15 days in Ireland with a group in Ireland. Right now, the Ophelia is over Ireland and Scotland. The hurricanes that are forming near the Azores and go towards the Caribbean, they simply changed course and went up already and went up to Scotland. What's happening with the planet? You saw the Harvey, for example, that flooded Texas. Texas that is semi-arid. We're seeing such terrible things already, and people are more worried in football than what is happening on Earth.
What is the most privileged country in sighting? Peru, Ecuador, Europe?
Colombia, in the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta, in all this area of Cabo de la Vela, in La Guajira, the ships appear even for pleasure. In the San Agustin area, in Huila, in the Tatacoa Desert, in the Huayca Stones, the Tota Lagoon in Boyacá, we have seen the lagoon light up and the ship before our eyes, and we have even seen how dimensional portals have been formed. The ship projects a kind of light form, a luminous dome, and we have seen anthropomorphic humanoid beings and get out the interior, and not only us, to a very large group of people from various countries who have been summoned here to have a contact.
Sorry, I wanted to talk about those experiments, those test tube babies, those nurseries. Does that have to do with the Anunnaki? Or do you not believe in Anunnakis?
First of all, my education is in history. I've studied history in the Catholic University in Peru. Then, in the Sumerian tablets that has an antiquity ranging from 5,500 to 6,000 years ago, there it states about the Sumerian gods. In this case, the children of An. An is the sky. So the son of An had children called Anunnaki, children of the sky. Among them there is Elil, Elki, Usach, Inanna. Therefore, there is many of these gods. Some of them had sexual contact with humans on earth. In the case of example of Inanna, Istar, Astarte, were very popular girls among the boys of the earth many years ago. They had several love affairs. Well, the thing is that these beings came here to earth and did all kinds of experiments. Of that, they already mention it in the clay tablets. On symbolical biographical writing, later replicated in cuneiform script from the Eastern Akkadian era, half to Syrian, Persian, Babylon. Then, when there is smoke, there is fire. And those myths exist that really happened sometime in the past, so our planet has been the scene of real contact of these beings from heaven.
Do you know anybody who has had a similar experience?
Lots of people, like Marcla, a Mexican contactee. Also the case, for example, of Edward Millimeyer in Switzerland, who had extraordinary contacts. Enrique Castillo Rincon, who you met here, he was in Colombia. He came from Costa Rica. He had an experience with beings from Pleiades. Well, there is a contactee in Bolivia, Luis Fernando Mostajo, a young contactee.
Do you know anybody who has had a similar experience?
Of course, the result is all the information that I am sharing with you. Just now, you were talking about Area 51 in Wembley, Nevada. This was a base that was a satellite base used in the Second World War, and that later it was used by the CIA to develop the entire project of the spy planes, and subsequently, in that place, the steel planes have been developing the entire project. That is, the F-717, the F-111, the Black Mantle, the B-2, Delta Wing.
Well, my friends, I hope that you have been well documented.